What?
That's
Oh,
a great change.
Such a great tune, man.
Oh, hi, everybody. Hey, Matt, noodle, will you?
Sure.
No. Do the stuff you were doing earlier,
The
man.
noodles.
Yeah, the good stuff. I know.
The audio's on.
There could be no promises to good stuff. There can just be promises to stuff.
I figure I'm always live. What you need from me, Dylan? As long as the cameras aren't live, everyone will think that this is me playing this beautiful guitar stuff here.
Yeah, that's the upside here.
Yeah, let's just
You gotta look
leave
on
the
the
cameras
positive.
off. I don't know. I like this so far. I like this. The fact that I can play like this while talking so conversationally, I think is pretty impressive.
It's very rare.
But the thing is, once the cameras are on, I get really shy, and one of them has to
you know who
go.
could have done that? Kirby Puckett.
Kirby Puckett.
Yeah.
Nice reference.
Well, he's
Wow.
a great player.
He was a great player.
Wait.
Huh?
I think this whole show's dedicated to Kirby Puckett.
It is.
It is
yeah,
now.
Yeah. Wait. Oh my God.
Oh my God! Hey,
they're
look,
here.
Hey, look, hey, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We're the Minnesota Twins.
We are.
This is two guys with guitars, but it's three guys with guitars. But we're not changing the title. I'm Eugene Edwards over here. That's Dr. Dylan Caligiuri right over there.
Hey there, how you
and
doing?
this is our special guest, Matt Lake, right over here. And we're going to find out everything about you.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. We've got we hid everyone from your life that you've ever met is over in Dylan's living room, and we're just and we're making good use of that Keurig coffee machine that you just
That's
got
awesome.
recently.
I love it.
And we'll be just bringing them out one by one, and we're just going to see how that goes.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect.
it's like a surprise birthday party, but without all the fun stuff.
Excellent. I'm terrified.
Yeah, you should be. So here's the idea. Now, when did we first meet?
You and I probably first met, it's been at least 15 years.
Okay.
Maybe.
All right. I thought it was more than that.
It's probably been closer to 20, actually.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and then through our mutual friend Mike Sessa, who played drums for my band, the Eugene Edwards Band, and he played
With the Atomic Sherpas,
the Atomic Sherpas,
which we did some really funky, just great.
Wait, go over
arrangements
that
and
again?
tunes.
he was in a band called the Atomic Sherpas.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, and then the drummer was a guy named Mike Sessa. Hi, Soupy. His nickname Soupy. We know him.
Hi, Soupy.
Soupy. And then he eventually played drums in my band. And then I think you would come and see us at Tex in Echo Park. Yeah. And so that's how we met. And then catapult, some 15 years later, I start getting wrapped up in doing Fender stuff. And I say, hey, will you be a guest on the talk show that we do? I said, sure. I show up, and who's the host? But you.
That's right.
You were hosting. We did a country episode.
That's right.
Yeah, and that's actually that's the day I met Dylan, actually, because Dylan popped in and did his little live.
It was
promos.
a very significant part of the show. It basically made the show.
Yeah,
Let's
listen.
say little.
You had a TV career shorter than Jack Ruby's.
Yeah.
But
I've got a Brian Whelan fun fact for you.
let's hear it
Wow.
now. Wait, I'm sure he'll be a guest soon.
Of course. Well, I met him working with Soupy at the Fowler Museum at UCLA.
I didn't know you did the art preparation
I was
too.
an exhibition scientist. That was the title of the term.
Is that a naked thing?
I'm glad you're clothed for this.
That's a naked thing, right?
You're
exhibition
both
is
welcome. That's gonna
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So the Fowler. Yeah. See, side hustles, man.
Yeah.
We could do. That's an episode topic. Daniel, write that one down.
Side hustles.
You got
Everybody say hi to Daniel.
Hi,
Hello.
Daniel.
Daniel's
Hey,
back
Daniel.
there. Yeah. Daniel's back there, and he's gonna be running. He's gonna be managing this mess mostly.
Yeah.
So, and then did you guys meet via Fender and the curriculum stuff, or did you guys know each
No.
other before that?
I think Fender was the first.
Oh, really?
Was our first interaction. Although I'd heard your name mentioned.
I thought we didn't meet at USC.
I don't think so.
Okay.
See, these are guitar heavyweights. These are like knowledgeable
I
guys.
have no idea.
So, no, where are you born and raised?
I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri.
Oh, great city,
Yeah.
fantastic city.
The Arch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the Arch.
It's not the Arch, it's the
And
Arch.
if you would have come to visit me, I would have taken you there.
And
To the Arch?
Yes.
what about Killer Vintage Guitars? Maybe it wasn't there yet.
Can I mention
No.
something about St. Louis, and then I won't talk for the rest of the episode, maybe. But now that arch, considering the heat during the summer, if they could have made that a fan or anything utilitarian,
Oh.
do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or a heater during the winter.
Or just put some misters on it. You know,
Yeah,
like those outdoor,
just
like
'cause
those patio.
There's about 2
restaurants.
good weeks of weather a year, and then you're just in pain the rest of the time.
Well, that's when you get your custard.
I
You
call
get
it,
your frozen-
yeah.
Ted
So
Cruz.
that arch could have been a fan.
It could have. But
Think about it, St. Louis.
But then, I mean, how useful would that have been when you have the people down below that have a mini arch with a little swing, and you can sit in there and take a picture like you're,
That's right.
you know, sitting in the
Not
arch.
to mention the Hindenburgs that could have been pulled into that thing.
Well, the best thing about going to the arch, you know, is going up in the little elevator that's it's like part
It was cool.
train,
yeah.
like choo-choo train technology, but it's very kind of 2001: A Space Odyssey.
yeah.
You're in, like this little eggshell.
They spent a lot of money.
They did.
I do want to take this moment to thank all our Patreon subscribers for supporting the show and also the St. Louis Board of Tourism.
Yes. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. We'll be there to do your lawns later this
Now
week.
we have to dedicate
Yeah.
this episode. We have to dedicate it to Ozzie Smith now. We're just rotating ball players. And then when did you move out to Southern California?
So I actually moved when I graduated high school a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I went to school. I was a cello major there at University of Missouri St. Louis for 2 years. And then I quit and I dropped out of school. Don't drop out of school.
Kids.
And I ended up in San Francisco in about 95
Oh, I see.
to play in some bands. And then I moved down to Los Angeles in 2000.
Okay, so now go ahead.
Wait a minute. I didn't know about the cello.
Yeah, I wanted
I
to
had
back
no
up
idea
to
about
that.
the
I wanted to
cello.
back up to that. Okay, so I'm going to work on this. We're going to get there organically. When did you first show an interest in music?
I think for me, ever since I knew what a guitar was, I wanted to play one. I think in preschool, I remember a guy came in as a guest and played. I think he played Blackbird for all I can remember
Sure.
at the time. But I just remember he did some finger picking, he sang, and I was ready.
Yeah.
I didn't actually get a hold of a guitar until I was 12, but still. So there was 8 years of wondering.
And then when you got the guitar at 12, who were you trying to emulate? Who, like, you said, okay, now I'm going to play like so and so.
Well, I didn't even have I'm going to play like so-and-so. There were so many. I liked, because I was listening to music. I definitely identified from 6 as I liked rock music because I had older brothers. They listened to KC 95 in St. Louis, Missouri. That was the real rock station you could hear on any given day. Fly By Night by Rush.
Yeah.
Right. You
Right.
could hear, Back in Black. And then you can hear all these other great classic rock tunes.
Yeah.
And so for me, that just became kind of the soundtrack for what informed what I thought it meant to be a guitar player, which was probably music that came out like 10 years before I came into,
Makes sense.
my
But
own,
that
so to
was
speak.
golden era music. I mean, that's like 70s.
Well, especially for
60s,
guitar,
70s.
like a kid
Yeah.
who loves guitar.
Yeah.
A lot of distortion, a lot of mixolydian.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay. So and then, but then how did you?
Mixolydian.
We'll talk about that in a minute. How did you? And then the cello.
Yeah. So cello, I took piano lessons as a kid too.
Okay. So you always had so you have a strong theory background.
A little bit. I didn't take it all that seriously. I remember I would ditch.
Oh
This
gosh.
is terrible because I could walk around the corner to Mrs. Schaefer's house, and there were a couple times where I hid behind like a wood pile through the lesson, and then I came and my mom's like, Mrs. Schaefer called me.
Yeah. Yeah. How did you think you were gonna get away with that?
I didn't think it through.
Yeah. We just we had no idea that adults could communicate with each other back in
Right,
those days.
right.
It just wasn't happening. Okay. So piano lessons, and you weren't taking that seriously because it didn't sound anything like AC/DC.
No,
Right,
nothing like
okay.
it. Nothing like it. No, but I remember going to a garage sale and getting an AC/DC T-shirt. When I was like 7, and my mom was like, "Oh no."
Oh really?
But of course.
Did she read the liner notes?
Yeah.
Don't let parents.
No.
Don't let your parents read the liner notes. It's a good thing they don't have liner notes anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, what do you get? MP3 liner notes? Doesn't exist.
That's
a
true.
good point.
That's true.
They can't pull out the lyric sheets
Yeah.
and say,
But
"Hey,
also
what's
the
going on?"
Kipper
Kiss
Gore.
dolls were on. The Kiss was on TV. They had the dolls, and like,
Yeah.
and I didn't get any Kiss dolls either.
Oh yeah, neither did I. I remember the adverts. It was so exciting. And so I had older cousins, and like 4 older cousins. They're all boys, and they were into AC/DC, Kiss, and Cheap Trick. And so, and then of course I'm 5, and Kiss makes all the sense in the world to me. The makeup, the all that stuff was like, yes, of course. Why isn't every band like this? Of course, because I'm 5 years old, right? Exactly. So, and then, but so I didn't have older brothers, but I had some older cousins, and that's really, really important.
Yeah.
Like you said, you had older brothers, and someone's going to guide you.
Yeah.
It's like you're going to need to listen to this,
Yeah.
or don't let your mom know, but check this out, you know.
Yeah, Queen records, Billy Joel records. My first album I ever owned, my brother gave it to me. It was on 8-track, Steve Miller Band, Book of Dreams. It still had his name in marker written on it, but that was my Christmas present that year.
Oh,
thanks,
very
Steve.
Cool. Way to go, Steve. And then,
Still had his name in a marker. It was his copy.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
and so how old
That's
are you?
a sacrifice, though.
So I'm still trying to get to the cello.
Okay.
Yeah, right. Oh, good point.
You know, that's the only reason why I'm a right-handed guitar player.
Oh, you're naturally a southpaw.
Yeah, I'm a lefty. Like when I used to air guitar to like beat it and stuff like that.
Oh,
I would be
really?
Like this.
Wow.
Right. And then, but I started playing cello at 9, and of course, there's no lefty cello players in the orchestra. Could you imagine being that one?
We're not going to restring it for you.
No.
Right. Okay.
No. So I played for 10 years. I mean, and again,
Starting at what age?
9.
Wow.
So until I was about 19 or 20. And I mean, you know, I don't, again, it's like, I think it definitely helped my ear, and it definitely helped my left-hand finger dexterity.
Oh, sure.
Certainly all that. But, you know, I didn't have the passion. I love the tone. I love the timbre of that instrument.
It's my favorite sounding instrument is the cello.
Yeah.
It really, really is. But just you're right. Now, let's point out that you said good for your ear. That's a fretless instrument.
Yeah.
So your intonation, your pitch, I assume you're pretty sensitive to it.
Yeah, I think
relatively
yeah.
because you just had to be at the get-go, right?
Yeah, I think that, and I sang, and I thinking back to like going to high school and stuff. It's like by my senior year, I was playing cello in the orchestra and singing in the choir and playing guitar in the jazz band.
Okay, good. Yeah,
There was 4 of us on guitar.
yeah. I remember those days. That was great for me, by the way, in high school. Like getting in a show choir where there were like 20 to 30 singers in front of you singing and dancing, kind of like an Up With People looking thing, really, and 3 other guitar players, 2 piano players. Like it was just everyone was in the. And so over years, I would do these performances, and so I got kind of stage time, but no one could see me. I was buried back there, but it was really, really good. You know, I learned how to like get through your out of tune before the next song, or you break a string, or how to cover for stuff.
Yeah.
And then slowly, and then you start playing the clubs, and like there's less people in front of you. But you know, I was like, yeah, but I've been on stage before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind
It
of.
gives you that experience,
Yeah.
right? Even though, you're in the back behind a music stand with a bow tie, and you're like,
Yeah.
Major 7th? What's that?
Yeah, you can think about it.
Well, I know a 7th chord. Let's play that.
Yeah. And then okay, so then you move out to San Francisco, and it was hard rock.
Yeah, I was playing at that point. I just wanted to rock, man.
Sure.
I want to rock. Yeah. Anyway, so I played in bands up there, and we did I did my first tour. Like we traveled across the U.S. in a van that like had a leaky exhaust. And,
Perfect.
Like before we even left, we had to me and my buddy were changing out the hoses, like the radiator hoses, because they were leaking and all that stuff. We made it there. We played CBGB.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, I mean the bartender was there, the sound person was there. It was magical.
Yeah.
You know, CBGB, like, I'm sure it was very nice in the 70s.
Define nice.
Well, I just noticed that there was a lot of tile work that had been broken when we were there.
it looked like that.
And the bathrooms
A little
could
bit.
use a no
The
mosaic.
bathrooms were legendarily bad, even in the 70s. From what I understand.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah, that was never.
So hopefully that's all changed now.
No, here's the thing about CBG. Now, did
Yeah.
you ever read the David Byrne book, How Music Works?
I did actually.
I did not.
Great
Yes,
book.
it's a
Wonderful
great book.
There's a chapter in it about how to make a scene, right? Like how to create a music scene.
Huh.
And there's these couple there's these rules that he'd noticed, and he mentioned that in the 70s, in the Bowery where CBGB's was, there was a Hilly, the owner, had a policy like that if your band played there regularly, if you played CBGB's, if you come by on a night off when you're not playing, you get in for free, no
I
cover.
thought he was going to say bring a mop.
No.
I think I remember reading that like in Please Kill Me. It's another book.
They
where
probably talk about that
the
there.
history of it.
So let's say I'm just a kid who wants to see some of this exciting
Right.
music, and I don't even know who's playing. Maybe television's playing.
Right.
But I pay my cover and go in. But the Talking Heads and Blondie and the Ramones, they're hanging out. They're there. They're not playing that night, but they're there. So he says this is how you create a scene where all
Right.
the musicians feel very comfortable being there, whether they're playing or not. and it kind of it just and then your place becomes centralized. This is where all the talent is hanging out, and it's just a real subtle thing. You can say, hey, club owners out there, pay attention to that one.
It's just no one has bathroom cleaning duty.
Okay, you're still very upset about this.
Well, it was a pretty bad experience.
It's pretty gross.
Yeah.
It's pretty
So
gross.
then, but I think of you as a very well-studied musician. So when did the obviously in high school you started kind of taking it a little more seriously, the theory part of it, or
well, when I went to college for the first time when I was studying cello, I mean, theory courses were mandatory. And so they definitely, and that's at an age, when you're 18, things are still like you just put it there and it just kind of sticks and it stays there. It's really nice.
Yeah.
You don't appreciate it at the time. Right. But, so I had it there and I could use it when I needed it. And of course, doing the kind of music I was doing at the time and kind of just solely playing like hard rock and stuff, I didn't really feel the need to really embrace it as much. And it wasn't until I moved down to Los Angeles and I moved down and I played in a band called the B-Movie Rats. And we played all over. We toured all over, and it was great. But I started getting really into like jazz just on my own. I found this Mickey Baker book.
Mickey Baker. No one talks about Mickey Baker anymore. Okay, for those of you that remember that fans of the movie Dirty Dancing and the song "Love Is Strange," right? Sylvia, how do you call your lover boy? And baby. No, wrong key. Oh, it's Mickey and Sylvia, and that's Mickey Baker. He was a great session guitar player. This guy, real quick, he was an orphan out of like Louisville, Kentucky, or something like that. And by the time he was 16, he had enough of foster homes, moves to New York City, and becomes a pool hustler for years.
I had no idea.
He just supported himself as a pool shark.
Who knew?
And then met some musicians in the pool halls. And it seemed like they were making they had cabaret licenses, they had studio work. I was like, well, that seems like kind of an easier. And so he picked up a guitar, kind of taught himself, hung out with jazz guys, and just learned a lot of that just by ear and by talking about it.
Yeah.
Then he started quickly teaching on the side. And that's how he discovered Sylvia. She was a guitar student.
Right.
Anyway, so, but Mickey Baker, just a real wild sound, right?
Yeah.
Just a really, really.
Well, that's why his book was How to Play Jazz and Hot Guitar.
Is that what he called
That's
it?
the title of the book. Yeah. And there was a book too.
Oh, my.
Wait, well, what comes after that though?
You
How to play hotter,
You go
hotter guitar.
Scorching guitar.
Yeah, scorching guitar.
Yeah.
So, because when go ahead.
Oh, we have some questions.
Oh, we already have questions.
Yeah, I
I'm
know.
so sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm so into our guests.
Mickey Baker's great.
Okay, so let's say, hey, ask Matt, what is the one thing or more that you wish you'd learned earlier in your playing career?
Ooh, that's like the question, isn't it?
That will just start there, yeah.
Yeah, when I first started playing, I was 12 or 13. It was like I started playing in about 1986, November 11th, 1986. I actually remember the day.
I'm sorry, could you be more specific?
Wow,
It was 7:48 p.m. No, I don't remember the time, but and that's a time when you went to guitar lessons, and they're like, you're gonna get this stylus pick, with like this weird rounded but pointy tip, and you're gonna work on sweeps, and you're gonna do all this stuff. And I did that pretty religiously for a couple of years. By the time I started like playing in local bands and stuff like that, we were starting to kind of abandon that, because like the hair metal thing was like phasing out. And I think I wish I wish I would have kind of always in my mind like pressed on to the theory and kept. So I had to kind of reacquire those things later.
Well, so the next is, as a southpaw playing right, do you find it hard to maintain picking accuracy?
That's a great question, and I'll tell you this: the benefit of being a lefty and playing righty is that this came together a lot faster. I was able to do hammer-ons, pull-offs, and other techniques like that. I felt pretty quick, like I could adapt. I'd been playing cello for a couple of years, just at school, but definitely my picking accuracy took time. Like it took longer to adapt, and then also to play really just more precisely, and just connecting those things took a little bit longer. For me.
I have a follow up on that, and this is a debate for the annals. But
watch the language.
Yeah. So starting a kid out on guitar, or an adult, it could be an adult kitten, I don't care what it is. But if they're left-handed, there's a big conversation about should they just play right-handed, because you can adapt, right? Just like what you're talking about. And also the selection of guitars is significantly larger too.
Yeah. So
what do you think?
My take as a lefty who's been playing, righty for my entire life.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I play righty, that I learned.
That's in the
to play
books.
right-handed.
It's in the books.
There you go. It's official.
For all the reasons that you mentioned,
Yep.
Dylan. And then again, as a kid, like I probably had more confidence than I should have, just because I could, I could play bar chords pretty easily. I could do hammer-ons, pull-outs. I could do string bends. I could do all that
But
stuff.
just the finger independence. Your pinky you could involve quickly, and that's a struggle for most right-handed players.
Exactly. But, and of course, at the time, I didn't really care as much about my rhythm and all that stuff. So I was fine, just doing, wiggling my fingers. I learned how to do real quick trill picking things. I could, I would solo completely out of key and just wiggle my fingers really fast.
Yeah, but man, your friends were like,
dude,
That guy's scorching.
I got the Boss DD3 delay pedal for Christmas, and I didn't care about anything.
All that subtlety went out the window.
yeah,
Carries on forever.
those were not in
notes.
time. Those delays were out of.
By the way, Sydney Ellen and Mary Keenan are in the chat.
Oh my gosh!
So I'd like
Sydney Ellen and Mary Keenan.
I'd love to have a specific question from both Sydney and Mary, and you guys got about 40 minutes, so get on it, ladies.
Yeah. So yes. So 20 minutes each.
Now I'm going to have you do a piece here, but before you do, we have another question. Speaking of theory, how important is it to playing? Now, Dylan and I have very strong thoughts on this. Have any great guitarists made it without being an expert in theory?
Most of them probably.
Okay, yes, but that's a bit of a trick question. I don't think they mean for it to be a trick question. The idea here, I think, is see if you agree with me, is that they may not know theory scholastically, but they're always using it.
Yeah.
I think even if we say, no, they're just an ear player. It's like, yeah, but that means they're hearing the theory.
Yeah.
So you're going to, whether you study it or not, if you're just going to continue learning songs and playing guitar, you're going to be using theory. Your choice as to whether you want to understand it or not. I say sound comes first. Theory is just giving a name to it.
Yeah. The thing that I've always said is, my approach to teaching has always been for students, there's the ball, hit it. Okay, now that you've got a sense of what you're supposed to be doing, if you're curious to understand it further, we can talk about that too. But that's especially in the lesson room and not necessarily, as a point of theoretical study. I think of teaching like one-on-one guitar lessons as let's get you from point A to point B to be able to play that thing that you're inspired to play, that you're excited to play. If you want to learn how to solo, to improvise, we got to go through those things, and then we'll have to adapt and apply theory at those points. But you have so many of your students that come into the lesson room, and they're like, usually the ones that go, hey Eugene, today I think I just want to learn a little bit of theory. I was like, you didn't practice, did you? No.
Yes. But I theoretically practice.
I fall for that every time.
In theory, I practice.
In theory, he practiced.
Just not in practice.
Tell you what, I'm a big fan of chord melody playing. I'm a big fan of it. So can you just do a chord melody tune for us? We're just going to let you perform here, and then we're going to talk a little more about how you made your guitar do that.
Okay.
Which is definitely probably involve theory.
I might not get through the whole thing. It's a long form, but let's see how it goes. I'll try a little bit of
we don't mind.
Amos Behavin'.
Perfect.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I abridged it, but yeah.
Dylan gets very moved when he hears those. Yeah.
Sorry.
That sharp 11. I mean, if you don't do a banshee like wail when you hear a sharp 11. Wait, let me see if it works. Let's see if it works. I'm gonna try a different one. Okay. All right.
See?
Does he one more?
One more.
Yeah.
Wow. It's almost
Dylan
like
College,
Thank you.
everybody.
it's almost like he's here.
It's yeah. Not mentally, just.
Okay, so
I'm just glad Sydney and Mary are here too.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's all.
I'm sitting thinking I'm so embarrassed that Sydney and Mary had to
Hear all that. I know.
No.
It's very
So
tough.
that was, of course, was lovely. And now walk me through, or walk the audience through. How do you put that together?
Okay. Well, there's a lot. This one.
I know there's a lot.
Two
going
or
on.
three steps.
But so I mean, to play a chord melody, that one's a little bit more complex. I put a lot of time into that one. with a chord melody, you're playing the melody of the tune that somebody could sing or play on the guitar or any other instrument, and you're providing the harmony. And in this case, I also tried to add some bass lines as well. And it's really a matter of getting the things to pop out that you want to pop out. So the number one thing would be, the melody.
The melody.
The melody. Like if I took another one, like How Insensitive. I love this one. Except like, that happened. Yeah. But the melody's so simple. So I could simply just strum the chord and then go to that top note of the chord. In this case, the fifth of the chord. That's kind of enough.
See, and you're always grabbing a chord and you having that melody line in it at the same time.
Yeah. So you grab the chord where you can, or if you can do something, I don't want to say just clever with the bass line, but if you can just do something to add, contrary motion, any kind of voice leading.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, Dylan does it masterfully. Like
this isn't about me.
Go ahead, Dylan.
Don't make this about me. You know what? Let's see. For anybody out there that's starting on this, I would maybe learn a song like on one string.
Yeah.
I want to hear a sharp 11. And then sing.
Okay, and then add just a single bass note to it. So from the chord, the lowest note in the chord. And then that's a start.
But there's some thought there. You chose the key of A major.
I did.
So you knew you had an
open string.
You had an open string for your bass note, for your 1 chord, and your 5 chord. And had you made it to your 4 chord, guess what?
Sorry.
Even your 4 chord
even had a 4 chord, and that's why
the key of A major is pretty good for chord.
And we also picked it because horn players hate it. And that had more to do with the open strings, to be honest with you. It's about making other people upset.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
As long as they're suffering.
Yeah.
Okay, here's Sydney's question for Matt. What made you decide to further your education?
It's been redacted.
Oh, wow. Look, it looks like Tucker Carlson's text messages. What happened? Okay, so what Sydney wants to know, what made you decide to further your education in music? And what advice do you have for people, like, if they're on the bubble of, I think I've had enough of the conservatory?
Oh,
I don't think Sydney said that, but I can't see the rest of the question.
Yeah. Again, for me, so I'd really kind of focused what I was doing and what I was playing with, and I was just playing with the groups I was with. They were my friends, and we played great bands. I mean, like the band I moved down here to play with, the B Movie Rats, really great
band. Actually,
yeah.
I do remember the B Movie Rats.
Just high energy and passion. But I was meeting different musicians and meeting like Mike Sessa, who introduced me to like
Vince and some of those jazz guys.
Maroney, who plays saxophone, he sings, he plays the drums, he plays the flute, and he's putting himself out there in all these different musical, scenarios, different styles, different genres. Right. And Vince was a guy who saw me as like, oh, you're studying jazz guitar and stuff like that, and he took me under his wing, and we had a gig at the Downbeat Cafe we were called the Downbeats, and it was with Mike and Vince and Robert Azul, and we would bring in a host of just great players to sit in, and we did that every week for like 9 years. Anyway, I did all that because I started to just get obsessed with going back to when I first started playing the guitar, and I love the idea of being like that utility knife kind of player where
it's lovely.
I remember watching Saturday Night Live. I'd stay up late and there was a black and white TV in the basement, and my parents thought I was asleep, and I would just watch it for the band. Right. Who's
G.E. Smith.
G.E. Smith and the Saturday Night Live band. Yeah.
And I remember just thinking like at that age was like, I did want the hair.
I wanted his gig so much. So much. Different guitar. Every time they
never
cut
played
away
the same guitar twice.
No, I think he just had a deal with Manny's, I'm assuming. Right? He just was like, I need a Gretsch 6120, I need a Jazzmaster, and I need a Blacktop Les Paul. And
he would just hit the stage and with the bass player, and like they would just own it there for that quick segue before the commercial break. It's like, that's really cool.
Yeah, he and T-Bone walk. In fact, that's what every Christmas season, they always had a tight one shot, and that's how I learned. because they would just show it just a tight shot on the handspring like every time, year after year. I was thinking, got it.
Yeah.
Got it. That was our YouTube back then, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
So
you know, I just was just playing with all these different players who could function in all, you know, these different settings. It's like, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. And so I just got into it. And so at a certain point, I was already, after kind of the B-movie resident, and I started going to Pasadena City College, and they had a great music program there. And I just...
Still do.
Still
do.
And I was just studying like jazz guitar on my own. I didn't even know they taught it in schools. And then, so once I kind of tapped into that, I didn't look back.
Gotcha.
I was in my late 20s by that point, and I was just ready to focus.
Because Sydney was, what advice do you have for others who want to learn everything there is to learn? Also, your guitar tone's on point, she says.
Oh, wow. Well, that's lovely.
Thanks, Sydney. I think it's just, you know, just for me, it's like I have to level my expectations, and I'm getting better in that. Because you go through that period if you kind of dive back into it after a while of just the learning process, and you go through that. The last thing I want anybody that's listening or watching this to do is to do that, kick myself, think like, oh, I wish I would have done this one. I wish. Oh. It's like that's so, you know, counterproductive to you being in that moment and enjoying the process of learning, adapting, assimilating, you know, whether it's styles or whether you're taking something and you're stretching. And as musicians, we constantly want to be stretching ourselves.
I think
right?
so. Yeah, that's right.
You know, we don't want to be complacent because then we're going to get bored, right? Whereas you can find that zone on a gig, even if you don't know the material that well. If you have your facilities together, you know what key you're in, you know what you can do, and you're going to take chances. You know you're going to be able to land on your feet, right? And sometimes something amazing is going to happen, and sometimes
you might. Yeah, it might not go. Well, look, this will be my second time talking. So go ahead and mark the second X, Daniel, please. Thank you. One more. I have one more. But no, so that whole concept of staying in the moment or becoming the moment for a moment, if you will, it's like a practice unto itself, right? And I think you can't wait until you get on the bandstand to try to do that. It starts. I mean, there are people who are just very calm people, who then maybe have trouble with motivation as a result of that.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. But otherwise, it's just going to take a considerable amount of practice getting in the moment, and that's where, you know, preparation meets opportunity and all that. But also, just you have to be mentally accrued to the idea that, like, look, I'm just going to throw it all at this and let it happen. Yeah. You know.
Now, we want to talk about some riffs.
Okay.
About riffs.
Okay.
We were talking earlier. He's like riffs. Yeah. Riffs is where. So I have thoughts on riffs, but what are your like? First of all, how do you define a riff, and then and why are they so important to us, and how do we come up with our own?
That's a great question. So the textbook or a textbook answer for a riff is a short musical idea that can be repeated over and over again within the context of a song. Sometimes it can drive the entire arrangement of the song. And
so you have familiarity with riffs prior to this meeting today.
Apparently, yeah. I thought I was throwing just a fresh subject at you.
Oh
no. Okay. No, go ahead. Sorry.
No, but I mean, a riff is for especially learning the guitar. This is how so many of us come to the instrument.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It's, how many students have you said, okay, here's Hal Leonard Book 1, and let's learn, 3 Pence Hence. That's not a real, even public domain song, but I just made it up. Right.
That's
and you'll be playing. Oh, I messed that one up. Right.
Then you go back over.
And or you come into the lesson room, and like my first guitar teacher was like, rock and roll.
Yeah!
I mean, I was like, I was 12. I was like, yeah.
You jump off a bridge for this guy.
On my first lesson, I was like, I can play riffs. Like I figured out some riffs on my own. Like I had Black Sabbath Paranoid on cassette. Right. And so I learned this by ear, and I was so excited. Oh, it's so freaky. And then the verse, right? Reflect in the sky. I love it when the vocal goes with the riff. Oh, and it's so creepy.
Yeah.
Right? And then they do this jazzy freak out section where I learned my first 7th chord. I mean, Tony Iommi.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Come on.
Like that's the moment when you figure that out. But the thing I couldn't figure out is like, how do you play a D chord?
Oh.
Like, I think on my first lesson, I may have learned Back in Black, of course, but either the first or the second lesson, then he taught me the song that I'd really wanted to learn since I was 6, which was Fly By Night by Rush from their the title track
Do
to
you
their
remember?
second album. Of course. And then the chorus, right? Fly by night. I'm not gonna play it and sing, but as
You're singing a little lower than it's a couple octaves lower than his.
but they do this. He does this really high G voicing. Alex Lifeson, I love it. A hard rock guitar player that uses the whole guitar for his rhythm guitar parts. Really composed and really independent of the bass, which is doing its own thing. Anyway, so like, you got to grab that high thing,
Right.
something like that. Now I'm forgetting, of course, but just he would get those high things in there, and that's even like early on. He hadn't even kind of come into his own as that. When he started like playing strats and using the whammy bar a lot, doing really creative stuff with like chorus and delay. But for me, I was happy with just like the stuff from those first 2 records.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, if you think about that for a second, that's like a really interesting way to come at it compared to the way a lot of people come at guitar today, right? Which wouldn't necessarily be from an ear player's angle. A lot of people would start with a resource because the internet is a fire hose
because
of
the resources are there.
information in your face.
that's
And
true.
you're part of one of those big resources,
Right.
Too. So go ahead.
Allegedly. And so I...
Or maybe somebody else in the room thinks they had a bigger part in.
No. I just mean allegedly. I don't know what you're talking about. But no, but you know what I mean. So it's something about the scarcity of when we grew up playing guitar was a limiting factor, but also not a limiting factor in a sense.
We can't change the time in which we're born. Last summer I finally got to meet Mike Campbell.
Wow.
Right. So we did some shows and his band, the Dirty Knobs, played. And so it was my chance just to, and I'm sure he's heard this thousands of times before by other players, and as I even joked, it's like, yeah, you were my YouTube.
Yeah.
Because MTV would come on and there was only so many videos, and there was the odds were they were going to play one of those early Tom Petty videos. Yeah. And God bless the cameraman and the editor who put those together, because on all of his solos and all those riffs, they would just do this single shot of Mike. And I remember, it's like that Disney, it's like the Pixar movie Coco. Yeah. Where the kid comes home after. In fact, he even looked like me when I was that age too. The hair with the VHS, and then just pausing, the VHS tape, because I'd record as much as I could.
Sure.
And just counting the dots.
Yeah.
And say, right. And you okay, and his hands just stays there and plays that voicing. You're like, okay, got it. And so I would just know that though. Hey, right?
Yeah,
You're right.
yeah.
When it came to like playing the full chords and stuff, I was like, I have no idea what's going on there. But I came in with riffs.
Right. It came with riffs. But it's that idea that you could, and a riff can be chord based, of course. Like you think, like even that Rush riff I play.
That's true.
It's not really a progression. It's a riff, right? It's just based on that
a
D
hybrid.
chord. Yeah,
that's pretty cool. Yeah.
But I mean, then you get into all like the Led Zeppelin stuff, right? Where it's Jimmy Page and he's playing these. I mean, he's playing these blues riffs on like those first 2 records. He's adapting them, he's modifying them, and he's also geniusly putting the guitar off to the side and putting the drums like right there. And you're like,
if you had that drummer, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
It's just really, Can you imagine that guy? Jim was like, I just found this kid who's just been playing clubs. Like, no,
yeah.
Hearing John Bonham for the first time just must have been like, just the cash register in his head must have been going crazy.
Pretty much.
That kid was so good.
Oh yeah, I mean, and like I discovered them. I was like, who's this band? And you have it on like a blank cassette, right?
Oh yeah, there's no information.
Somebody puts on either it's like I think my buddy Brian Pollard, if you're here, he was my drummer for years. Sister Mary Elephant, our first band.
Oh, from the Cheech and Chong reference. Way to go.
Dude, we played all over St. Louis. I don't know how we got into these clubs, but we played them. Anyway, so I have this tape and it's all this Led Zeppelin stuff, and you're like, it's like you go into this different world. It's like those first couple Black Sabbath records for me. Like I didn't have any reference like when they came out or who the players were or what they looked like.
And none of the song titles match a lyric anyway.
No.
To even make it tougher, right?
Totally.
Yeah. So good luck with that.
Well, they match a Tolkien reference somewhere. I'm sure.
Good luck
There's
with
some
that.
Sort of, like Hobbit story.
Exactly.
That,
I mean, no, they never say war pigs.
no.
Oh, that's
Right?
true.
No, they don't. No, you're right.
I mean, okay, Led Zeppelin, you maybe like live and love and, you know.
You got that. Whole Lot of Love was probably the closest thing to a proper Good Times, Bad Times.
But Stairway to Heaven never
No,
says.
they never.
Stairway to heaven.
No, it's the very final line of the whole thing.
Oh, you're right.
Very final line.
Flying.
You're right. It
Yeah.
does.
Yeah, I'm looking for the Hedgerow song.
Yeah.
So okay, so while we still have time, man, because we could just keep going, because there's another great question. Let's do the riff thing
Man,
first.
you
though.
can see it.
Yeah.
You
So
can see that?
that's right. So
Sorry, I'm getting up.
I could see the redaction.
recipes, the secret sauce to making a cool, memorable riff.
Oh, man.
Like the riff should be a hook at this point, right? Let's
I
face
think
it.
so. You know, one of the things that like I would find disappointing over the years, like when I go see like cool bands and you'd see their setup 2 guitars,
Yeah.
2 Les Pauls, like Thin Lizzy, Marshall half stacks, and they would play the exact same parts, and then the bass would play the exact same part. I was like, guys,
Spread it out.
spread it out. Yeah. Because it would, you know, in the mix, like live, it would, you know, I always liked to hear something with contrast, right? Which, you know, I always would get from like Alex Lifeson and Geddy Lee playing together, or Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones playing together. So so there's so many cool things you can do. You can start with power chords. You know, how many Iron Maiden songs do? You know, or maybe that's Billie Jean, or you know, you name the song with that progression, but what do you do with it? You can play your power chords, right? But then you can also add a palm mute, and of course you hear this. But if you can come up with something a little bit that's independent of what the bass is doing, or let the bass player do
Cover that gallop.
cover that gallop, and now you've
Take
got
it, Chip.
Chip Wilson.
Chip Wilson.
Yeah. You know, and then just find other voicings to play, you know? Like it doesn't have to be this power chord shape. You could play, right? Like, I mean, Tony Iommi, like every
Very
Black
much.
Sabbath song ends up being like a subgenre of metal music,
Sure.
you know? You know, like in the intro to War Pigs, he does that thing where he plays a major third. Right, and you think that like that's some discovery, but like it's been there since the beginning of the genre, where that major third can sound like almost as interesting or even like diabolical
Well,
as
like
you
in
know.
a Whole Lot of Love, in the fade out as you hear him do this little fourth.
Yeah.
Da-da. One of the guitars does that, and it's just a little sweet. Just to have that little major third in there is like a little bit of surprise. And you know what? Jack White gets this right. A lot of his early riffs, they like these big blues riffs, but then he'd have this major third he'd really jump on it. And I always thought he had that right. He noticed that detail.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think it's important because you can use, minor triads. You know, and then resolving to the tritone. You know, which is. Right, you go to automatic chicken head because there's something
And
rhythmically.
the night.
Sorry.
So there's there's just this consistent rhythm. There's a power chord, and also I like that you mentioned contrast because I was thinking, I always thought there's probably jokes out there too about about Crazy Train, the intro riff, the main riff, compared to what happens over in the verse.
Yeah.
Right, like where it's an F sharp minor, but you've got like the sharp 5. You have the sharp 5. You have a minor third going, but then there's this major 7th happening here. It's like really kind of this light and shade thing. Yeah. Or the other thing about contrast, and you talk about Page. I was thinking about Angus or the riff to Back in Black, where it's almost like this call and response.
Yeah.
Think so, like with your so that's your power chord work, and then there's a. So he jumps to another part of the guitar, like you said, Alex Lifeson would do.
Yeah.
Or what's another I was thinking of? Also like, and then
Yeah.
there's a response to it. You know, there's always like it's instead of just staying in this one position, there's kind of this shift move. Like
Yeah.
that's kind of like really, really, really I don't know I don't know how to play it, but it's sort of like this call and response. Like you establish this, but then there's almost this answer to it.
Right. It's you set up that expectation, and then the variation is what makes the music interesting, right? And that's all again provided that it's like on embedded on a great groove or a beat, right? And I think that's one of the key ingredients to making up riffs. Is I didn't do it for a long time because I was so busy studying and stuff like that. And then through the pandemic, I started playing drums. I'd done it a little bit through the years whenever I could get behind a kit and annoy people. Hey, can I sit behind there? Just hours would go by. It's so fun. But I realized it's easier to get a hold of recording equipment and stuff like that. When I can make up a riff, I'm not sure where I'm going with it until I have a groove or a backbeat that is unique to that riff. And of course, if you have 14 hours a day where you can sit with John Bonham, you can probably figure that out pretty quick. But when it's going through a time when you can't jam with anybody, then it's like, okay, well, I'm going to sit behind the drums and I'm going to come up with something. And through that, I was able to start to write like hard rock based riffs again. Because I could pretend to be a rock drummer, so that made sense to me. And then just getting the right tones and then using some of these elements and these ideas that we're talking about, all of a sudden I can write music again. But the rhythm has got to be there. And now there's just so many great tools for people.
Even if a GarageBand or Logic and these there's just this drum loop sitting there. Grab one that appeals, right? Just let it play. And if you start noodling guitar, you're kind of maybe bound to come across something that's like a rhythmically driven riff. Exactly,
because music and new music is that combination of, we've only got these 12 notes that we deal with, and there's various, combinations and permutations. But when you add the other wild card, the more important wild card, which is what's the groove, what's the rhythm, what's the meter, what's the tempo, right? And then once you have that together, then how do you arrange it? Like, what is the recipe for that? Now you can create an idea, a song based on maybe one riff, maybe two riffs, maybe three riffs.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And you've got that vision in your head because you hear the groove, you hear the tempo that it's supposed to sit and feel good. Right. Or, whether it's a chicken head.
Sure. If it makes you do that.
Yeah. Or a headbang. That's whatever the case is. Or, sometimes.
Well, I was just thinking, if it's kind of more of an R&B thing, then you kind of get okay.
I can't. I need you tonight. I can't do the sideways thing. I can't.
Oh, that's a great riff.
Yeah. You know what? I think.
Call and response.
There's like a story here where the narrative moves from the guitar or the bass or the instruments to the vocals almost. Like in the sense that you have, it's on the band, the music, and then it leaves the band with less reverb, of course. And then when it goes back to the riff, the narrative moves back, like it's straddled between the band and the singer, or it's just the band again. Yeah, and it's almost like a leitmotif operatic. Really smart.
I think what you're calling about is arrangement.
Yeah, arrangement. And then that beat is established in the riff without a drum set through accents. So if you have and so building those into your playing is the way that you internalize rhythm and don't rely on something. But forever you end up having to rely on an external source for rhythm. It's very hard to match these two parts of your brain together in the beginning. That's where reading music, as painful as it is, really helps, because from the day one you end up having to read a note and apply a rhythm to it. Yeah. And so you connect these. It's like having an emotion and naming it. Yeah. So you connect the limbic or the animal part of your brain to the part of your brain that could consider what your behavior might be as a result of the emotion. Well, reading a note, playing a note, and then this kind of grid-like concept of time being applied to that is connecting those same two hemispheres in a sense.
Hemispheres, more Rush references.
I was going to say.
Well, speaking of emotional...
There's the Alex Lifeson
cry. Speaking of emotional things, Mary Keenan says, I only have one thing I want to hear from Matt tonight, is Michael McDonald imitation. Not impression. I love you, Mary. Imitation.
Me a moment off here.
Yeah, I'm trying. No.
Can't forget. I don't. Wait.
Peg.
Like a picture. But that's Donald Fagen
Oh,
doing
Yes, sir.
back to you. Oh,
That's it. That was perfect. Dude, you've got it.
Yeah. Kid, you're going to go places.
I am.
Mary, that was for you.
That's for you.
That was for you. Back to you. One more question. Daniel, can you scroll up for me just a little bit? Someone asked, I'd love to hear about the variety of music that you play and perform and how that shaped your development as a player. Do you advise someone to just do a deep dive on one, I think, on one, thank you, Dylan. Do you advise going deep or broad when learning?
That's an excellent question. And I mean, I've seen it so many ways. For me, my interests just change. They go here. It's like 1 minute, it's like, oh, there's that Jerry Reed guy, and he does it. It's like, I want to do that.
And then I'd be remiss if we don't mention Power Falcon.
Oh, well, of course.
Speaking of Chip out there, your bass player. So I went and saw Power Falcon a few months ago, and because of the name, I kind of had an idea what was going to happen, but I didn't suspect all of that. Describe Power Falcon, because we want you to plug stuff.
Okay.
Any gigs, sessions, anything you're working on. But,
Sure.
But for me, will you please start with Power Falcon?
I would love to begin with Power Falcon. So Power Falcon was, again, this whole thing that I was talking about. It started through the pandemic, and kind of just coming back to playing hard rock that's got a progressive kind of side to it, right? Where there's a riff laid out, there's a counter riff, there's a development section, and of course it's in the 3-minute range. I don't want to extend it out too long, but anyway, so but it was learning the drums, and it happened, and just these hard rock riffs started coming into my head along with the drums. It's kind of happened after I was going through some personal stuff, and it was therapy for me.
It's good to get it out.
Yeah, and then so I got a couple of my old buddies together, Dan on rhythm guitar and Pete on vocals, and at first I was gonna be, I'm gonna be the drummer for this band.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah,
because you started. Okay.
Yeah, and I was like, God, this is so fun. But the reality is, and then Scott Aguero, who's our drummer, who's just the next level, just a masterful drummer. He's like, yeah, I wouldn't mind playing in your band with you. I was like, okay, I'll go back.
Done deal. Yeah. If you get him, because now, by the way, I don't know if the set that I saw, the set list, the order, I don't know if it's the same every time, but the one that I saw,
yes,
you lulled me into a false sense of security. Now, the first 3 or 4 numbers, they are pretty much just straight ahead, hard rock, big riffs. And then as the set went on, as the set progressed, the music progressed, and by the last couple of songs, like shifting stuff happening, it was too late. I was already in. I never saw it coming. It got more. Again, it wasn't prog rock, because you're right. Nothing goes too long.
Yeah.
But it definitely gets more involved as it goes. So well done.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And it's just about just coming up with taking you on that little journey. And one of the main things I want to do is make sure that each and every song sounds different from the next.
That definitely is true. Give us a Power Falcon riff.
Yeah.
Okay, the very first one I came up with was it starts with like this maniacal.
I don't want it. Get it out of me.
And then so you're on this pirate early Iron Maiden kind of thing, but the groove that Scott came up with is just drives it in a different direction. So it's very cool.
Okay, but you started with this. Okay, I guess
Does
I
he
want
play a bossa against that or something?
But it starts with this really scalar work. I mean,
yeah, it's just a little chromatic idea.
Now when you first sat down, when you got here this afternoon, sat down with the guitar, plugged you in, and we're running around, we're plugging stuff in, and Dylan's running around
I'm running around.
Yeah, I wasn't. I made some coffee.
He made some coffee.
He said, "Hey, Eugene, go make lots of cups of coffee," and that's just him getting me out of the way.
Yeah,
it's a ruse every time.
Still stepped on my foot.
I did step.
This actually is an empty cup. I haven't been drinking coffee.
Yeah,
at all.
It's chord squeezings in there. But I did notice that you sat down and you did proper little scale work exercise, little finger stuff. I don't know if it was the spider or something but I heard
it was sequential fourths.
So you were doing sequential fourths.
Yes.
Was he?
I don't remember.
I believe that.
Going,
Yeah, but so when you sit now, do you have a practice regimen with guitar?
That's a great question. I have regimens and I break regimens. Right.
But okay.
Where, you know what I mean? Like where I'll go through a period where I was like, man, I got to warm up every day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to play through all my scales through the circle of fourths. And, I'm going to do it in sequences of thirds or fourths or whatever. And then sometimes I just have to sit down and just play. I'll put on like iReal Pro and just play like jazz standards and just noodle over that.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll slow the tempo down. I'm feeling really good about myself if I get up at 5 a.m. and do that for an hour.
Wow.
Or, but that hasn't happened.
Oh.
Sometimes it's only 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Just
I
before-
rarely feel good about myself, but, I know how I can get there.
Right.
But it feels really good because then throughout the rest of the day, whenever I have a chance to make contact with the guitar or play music, I feel connected. I feel connected with the tempo more. I feel connected with just where I want to go on the instrument.
I love this. I tell I tell students this story all the time, and this is third hand actually. But a friend of mine went and saw Peter Erskine do a clinic. Great drummer, right?
Incredible.
And Erskine had like a student come up with the kids. Show me what you do when you first, what you first thing you do when you practice. The kid gets up there, and just starts, just playing, like, and really well.
No,
Obviously.
of course.
And Erskine's like, cool. Takes the sticks. And then he gets another kid to come up. Says, show me what you do when you first sit down to practice. And the kids, same thing. Just just lots of, just hitting everything.
How's that again?
And
Thank you.
And he says, okay, well, here's what I do. Erskine sits down and just plays time. Just plays time for life. And he talks about, I'm just going to spend the better part of 5 minutes getting acquainted with my kit. Mm-hmm. Is everything in tune? Is it placed well? Is the ride a little dull? What's going on? And it just has a stick feel in my hand. Just really, and you talk about that connection thing where just get that. And I tell them, just sometimes just hold it. And because also you're just going to check, just that. I strum a few chords, just a progression. Like lately, if I sit down, let's see if you can recognize this progression.
Okay. It's like it's there, but it's not there.
Turn to Stone by ELO.
Oh my! This guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just a really beautiful grade, but am I tuned? Is my intonation off?
Yeah.
Little things like that. Just kind of like if do the strings sound dull? Is it time to replace them? Just recognize those things.
Yeah.
Because there might be something off with your instrument, and you might have to correct that before you actually start your practice. No.
Yeah. No. I look. I being a musician is such a cathartic thing that I caution myself from ever like assigning any particular way to do anything because like that scene in the movie
The
where
Doctor.
There's declamatory.
there's like you're throwing paint naked at a wall, you know what I mean?
No.
That's about how I start playing guitar during the day. The equivalent of that, but on guitar.
But it probably depends on like which instrument you're playing as well, how you're going to approach it.
Oh,
the,
sure.
The tone,
Absolutely.
the timbre of the instrument. Like if I'm
He's got his Jackson compared to his archtop Gibson.
Well, if I've been playing guitar for so long now that it hurts if I don't warm up. Like it actually does hurt. My body is just like, I don't want you to play. And so the first thing I do is sit down with my body and say, look, let's work out a deal today.
Yeah.
You
know what I mean?
Is something gonna seize?
What's it going to take you to get you in this practice session today? And then we start from there. And so, but I'm half joking. It has.
I hear you.
Yeah, I get it. But yeah, you're like half used car salesman to yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. And but also, I mean, a big part of longevity on playing guitar is like not coming to it with too much angst or too much pressure. And so, speaking to what you're talking about, everybody who's a young kid in college doesn't necessarily know that, like, look, you're going to do this for 17 hours a day, and then you're going to age for 20 more years, and it's going to be, you're either going to fall out of love with this, or you're going to hurt when you do it. And if you don't change the relationship that you have with it, the way that you come at it, because it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what Peter Erskine's saying in that instance. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I think that's huge. I think that's such an important part is one of the key aspect to warming up is really when we talk about connection, there's actually a very physical thing, and I love watching players, who you can see that they have that connection where it's like the movements are so
they're Bruce Lee.
subtle, right? Yeah, it's you see them, they're barely moving their fingers, and
Right.
yet all this music is coming out. You can almost see like the little bounce, like the rhythm is there in the hands. And, and it's a thing I try and get students to do, especially when they want to tackle bar chords and it might be a little too early, or they have a guitar that's too hard, and they sit there holding the chord. They're gripping
Like a
that
vice
G chord,
grip, sure.
for dear life. And I'm like, you can't hold that for more than a few seconds. Please don't hold it for a few seconds. You immediately go, okay, tension release. Just, hit it. Right, now
Go out. Oh, sorry.
Just
I'm gonna be.
but yeah, to just get that touch. What does it feel like? Do the accent.
Sorry, but I'm gonna be the man who walks around.
oh my goodness.
Okay, so we're down to like the final minute. So I do want you to plug anything that you have going on before we. What? No, get your. What's the matter with you?
I don't know. It's,
got a
Matt's
guest.
here. Matt's here.
I'm here.
Before you close it up, though, can everybody in the comments just mention that Sydney should probably come on the show?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Sydney,
All right.
This is your call to action.
That's all.
her agent's been playing hardball. I've been trying.
Well,
I've been trying.
all right.
It's going to be
I
okay.
mean, she did that Christmas ad, the Fender Christmas ad. She's been a big shot ever since then.
It was the Egos.
Well, it's the acting.
Yeah.
She's a natural.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to do it.
I see you, Sydney. All right, but yeah, so we got to get you, Sydney, on the show. So Power Falcon, you have any gigs? You play mostly LA, obviously.
We've got shows coming up. So we've actually got some out of town shows coming up. Our first this summer. So our next in town show is going to be at the Universal Bar and Grill, and that's on June 29th. And then we're actually going to go trek up to San Francisco.
I thought you would.
Ahoy.
Yes.
And on July 22nd, we'll be at the Makeout Room.
Great name.
And and
That's,
then the following weekend we're going to be down in Oceanside, which is all the way to San Diego at
Camp Pendleton. Let's go.
the Poorhouse.
I work there.
Oh, yeah, you played
we
there.
get in trouble down there.
Okay, yeah. So I'm excited for that.
So how they find is Power Falcon on Instagram or something? Or?
Yeah. We have an Instagram page, a Facebook page, and then we
there you
have 2 singles out on Bandcamp. Just search us up, Power Falcon Band. One of the riffs I played on the show, and actually I think I have one of the other riffs I played earlier on the show when I was like sneakily teaching how to build a riff.
We'll go out on the second Power Falcon riff, though. That'll be our play out music here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just want to thank you, Matt. Thank you so much for coming.
Yes,
Everybody,
sir.
big hand
Oh,
for
yeah.
Matt.
Oh,
Thank
yeah.
you, gentlemen. I can hear you out there.
Yeah. Thanks
Yeah,
everybody
sorry.
for watching.
You just
Mary,
scared Rex.
Sydney, I miss you guys.
And for Dr. Dylan,
Thank
for
you.
myself, for you,
Thank you.
and Matt, we just want to thank you. We'll see you next week. Also, don't forget, support us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com. It's 2 guys with a Z, 2 guys with guitars, and subscribe. And then that's about it, isn't it?
Yeah.
All
I
right.
mean, yeah.
All right, let's just
Please,
go out.
please
and
support
thank you,
these
Daniel.
guys. This is a killer service. I don't mean to interrupt you and Daniel as well. All 3 of these
Daniel.
guys working their butts off, and this is a great show.
All right, we're going out some Power Falcon while I drink some coffee.
All right, let's do it.
There's no way I can play along with that. Oh, whoa! He missed. That's perfect. Wow, you made that easy on us, buddy.
Dude, that was so
You did
fun.
that so easy on us.
Hope that was
That
okay.
was perfect. Great. Thank you so much.
You're
for
fantastic.
playing, man.